History was made yesterday in Addis Ababa as the African Union, AU, formally announced the unification of the African continent under a single transitional government, appointing Captain Ibrahim Traoré as the supreme leader of a united Africa. The declaration was issued at the close of a high-stakes emergency summit that brought together heads of state, diplomats, military officials, and civil society leaders from across the continent, all convened at the AU headquarters to address a growing chorus of unrest, economic anxiety, and calls for self-determination. The announcement marks the boldest leap yet toward continental integration since the founding of the Organization of African Unity in 1963. While previous AU summits have often ended with incremental resolutions and aspirational communiques, this one concluded with a definitive and radical reimagining of Africa's political future. The rise of a new order. The summit, which had originally been scheduled to focus on the deteriorating security situation in the Sahel, economic dependency on foreign lenders, and the fragmentation of regional blocs, quickly shifted direction following a passionate address by Burkina Faso's delegation. The group, representing a growing alliance of anti-imperialist West African nations, proposed the formation of a Pan-African Transitional Authority, an emergency continental government to guide the continent through a historic reorganization. Central to the proposal was the selection of Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the 36-year-old military leader of Burkina Faso, as head of the transitional structure. Known for his revolutionary rhetoric and decisive actions against Western interests, Traoré has cultivated a massive following across Africa, particularly among youth and grassroots movements who view him as a successor to the dreams of Thomas Sankara and Kwame Nkrumah. Speaking on behalf of the West African Bloc, Malian Foreign Minister Adama Doumbia stated, "We believe the time for debate has passed. The time for action is now. Africa must rise with one voice, under one flag. We nominate Ibrahim Traoré, the people's soldier, as the spearhead of our liberation." The motion, initially met with stunned silence, soon gained traction. By the second day of deliberations, over 40 countries had voiced preliminary support. By the summit's end, all AU member states, despite some expressed reservations, had signed on to the historic Unity Accord of Addis Ababa. The declaration. AU Commission Chairperson Musa Faki Mahamat delivered the formal declaration before a packed plenary session. His voice trembled slightly as he spoke, fully aware of the enormity of the moment. In recognition of our shared history, our indivisible future, and our collective commitment to freedom and dignity, we, the sovereign nations of Africa, hereby establish the Pan-African Transitional Authority. We appoint Captain Ibrahim Traoré as supreme leader, tasked with guiding the continent toward complete political, economic, and military integration. Delegates rose to their feet, some embracing, others overcome with emotion. It was a moment decades in the making, a realization of long-deferred dreams. The symbolism was palpable. The continent, once carved up by European empires at the Berlin Conference of 1884, was now taking deliberate steps to stitch itself back together under African leadership. A vision for the future. In his inaugural address as Supreme Leader, Traoré delivered a fiery and uncompromising speech. Dressed in olive military fatigues, flanked by elders, revolutionaries, and youth leaders, he stood before the continental body with quiet confidence. We are no longer the children of exploitation. We are the heirs of empires. Today, we cast off the chains of division and declare the end of the colonial map. No longer Anglophone, Francophone, or Lusophone, we are African. The borders were not ours. But this future will be. Traoré's roadmap includes sweeping changes over the next 24 months. Key priorities under the Transitional Authority include a unified military command, with joint defense councils in each region of Africa to combat insurgencies, illegal mining, and foreign mercenary operations. The introduction of the AFRIC, a continental digital and physical currency backed by African natural resources, designed to break dependence on the CFA franc, dollar, and euro. The establishment of a continental parliament, composed of representatives from all member states, tasked with drafting a permanent constitution for the United African Federation. Harmonization of education, trade, and environmental policy, including the abolition of visa restrictions between African countries. Continental control of mineral resources, ending exploitative mining contracts with foreign companies and creating a central resource management board headquartered in Kinshasa. Global reactions. The international response has been swift and polarized. In a joint statement, the European Union and the United States expressed grave concern over the EU's decision, calling for respect for national sovereignty and democratic norms. France, whose influence in West Africa has sharply declined under Traoré's leadership, warned of possible consequences for diplomatic and economic partnerships. On the other hand, Russia and China applauded the move. Russian President Vladimir Putin hailed the unification as a victory for the multipolar world, while China offered full diplomatic recognition and pledged billions in infrastructure investment. Across the African diaspora, the reaction has been overwhelmingly positive. From the streets of Kingston and Port-au-Prince to neighborhoods in London, New York, and Rio de Janeiro, African descendants celebrated what many called a reclamation of identity. Pan-Africanist groups from Brazil to the Caribbean issued statements of solidarity and called for observer status in the new continental government. At home, the new spirit. Back in Africa, spontaneous celebrations erupted in cities large and small. In Ouagadougou, a million-person march formed within hours of the announcement. In Dakar, Cape Town, Lusaka, and Nairobi, people took to the streets waving a new continental flag, green, black, then gold, emblazoned with a map of Africa and the motto of one people, one struggle, one destiny. Radio stations played revolutionary songs. Mosques and churches offered prayers for unity. At universities, students debated the meaning of the moment. "I never thought I'd see this in my lifetime," said Njeri Kamau, a law student in Kenya. "It's like we woke up and found our voice again." Despite the enthusiasm, challenges abound. Integrating 1.4 billion people across diverse political systems, languages, and cultures will test the capacity of any leader, especially one rising from a military background. Questions remain about checks and balances, the role of opposition parties, and the potential for conflict if consensus breaks down. Yet, for the first time in over a century, Africa is not reacting to history, it is making it. A final word. As night fell over Addis Ababa, the city sparkled with torchlight parades, fireworks, and chants echoing from hillside to hillside, "Africa enai moja." Africa is one. In a continent long bruised by exploitation, division, and broken promises, something extraordinary has emerged, not just a man, not just a government, but a united will. Captain Ibrahim Traoré now shoulders the hopes of over 1 billion people. Whether this bold experiment leads to enduring unity or crumbles under its own weight remains to be seen. But as of yesterday, one truth stood undeniable. Africa has turned the page. And the world is watching.